So I'm recording this on Sunday, August 25th, and today was supposed to be one of the 2 days that was going to go to Anime NYC. I was also going to go Friday as well with a group of friends. Now, I was really excited to find that I officially was let into Anime NYC as a member of the press. For those of you that don't know, I have been to Anime NYC numerous times, I believe 3 times now in total. I've been a big fan of the convention. I even wrote about it when it was just getting started. And every time that I've gone over the past couple of years, I've really had a wonderful time there. I would put Anime NYC up there as one of my favorite conventions to go both as a fan and as a member of the press alongside PAX East in Boston. It is really one of my favorite conventions. And I was really excited to find I was let in as a member of the press because of the fact, right, that I wanted to cover, the presence of adult content there, of hentai, of doujinshi. Famously, there are a fair amount of booths that do sell adult content at Anime NYC. There are a number of wholesale retailers that will go ahead and sell things like old, H games for like computers straight up on DVD. It's really funny, actually. Or hentai releases, usually localized from Faku within the US and for English speakers. Faku always tables there. Also, Hendane, which is like basically the most well-known doujinshi booth that pops up at anime conventions in North America, is always there as well. And I love visiting their booth. And I really wanted to see, that combined with what's going on in the artist alley, I was really curious, like, what is the English localization doujinshi and hentai world like at these conventions? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? What kind of content is appearing? And that aside, I was also just really excited to see, what is the landscape of an anime convention in 2024? So I was pumped. I was excited. I was ready to go. And I prepared for the convention, everything all week. And then something happened and I just couldn't go. I have a image, I think, that I really cultivate as a VTuber and content creator of sort of like the insightful, goofy, but like collected and well put together, like video content creator who also is like a very confident and very I would almost say like a kind of femdom that gets what she wants, right? Like that is the image that I like to put out. And that is the kind of femdom that I like to roleplay, right? There is truly nothing greater to me than to be able to sit there and record an audio where I take what I want from you, I get what I want from you, and I make you feel a little bit smaller than me, but you have a good time as a result. That to me is like one of the most my most favorite things to record as a content creator. So my image as an ASMR creator, especially as a giantess ASMR creator who like creates these larger than life like women, these like larger than life femdoms, literally, who like don't care about like what other people think, that take up space, like cross lines, that commits like giantess 4 and stuff. I feel like I have this image as like an adult content creator of like, the kind of cold, cruel, or like gently controlling kind of femdom, right? And like that is a part of me. Like I'm not just role playing. That is like an aspect of me. Like there is like this, part inside of me that's very confident, that doesn't care what people think, that does what she wants. And I get to like let that contained version of myself out for those role plays.
Oh, there you go, dearest. Still bound in rope, but small enough to eat.
But it's really funny because I think only my Twitter followers really know that like the actual IRL me, I think she's a lot more vulnerable and she's a lot more gentle and she's a lot more fragile. And that was really what I came up across when I was going to go to Anime NYC. So, I don't really talk about this much on my lewd tubing social media stuff, or let alone here, but as far as who I am IRL, I would consider myself um uh sort of kind of a, a shut-in. I really struggle with going out these days unless it's for basically running errands, like going to a bodega. I live in New York City, so like a deli, or like going grocery shopping, and that's really about it. Like sometimes it's even hard for me to go out and do chores, like go pick up medication or stuff like that. And it's funny being like an adult content creator whose whole entire shtick is like I'm a femdom, but like deep down in my life, I actually feel like this very normal part of socializing is unapproachable to me. And it's not that I lack social skills or anything like that. Because actually people tend to come up to me and they think like, Anna, you're a very good socializer. You seem very relaxed in social conversations, or you understand the nuances of conversation well. Like, can you help me with a problem that I'm having? Because you're good at like handling people in a way that others are not. And people will say that, but it's not really fully the truth. Since I was very young, I've struggled with social anxiety. Like, I remember being like 4 or 5 and really struggling with just being around strangers and talking to them, like as a kid. It's something that never really faded away. I kind of was very indoors all of my like childhood life. Like, I would play video games all the time. I would like almost never have friends over. I would feel really awkward if like there was someone over that was like a peer, or I went over to a friend's place. The rare times that I did, I didn't really have any friends growing up, period. As I got older and I started to make friends in like college and stuff like that, I would hang out with my friends, but even, all the times I'd go to class, all the times I'd hang out with friends, all the times that I would do social stuff and like go to parties and stuff like that, I was still like very, very socially anxious all the time. And I mention this because I think there's this assumption that social anxiety can always be overcome by simply going out and doing the thing. And that's just not entirely true. As I entered adulthood, I transitioned right after college ended, and that was sort of like Icarus getting his wings melted off. Like, my whole life changed and it kind of plummeted downwards. Like, I just felt like, I was like really in a survival state for a long time when I transitioned. It was not an ideal time to transition, right? Coming out of college, looking for work. I would work a job regularly where I felt social anxiety every day walking in and would dread coming into work. And I would, when I moved to New York City and lived in my first apartment, I was kind of a shut-in. Well, not a shut-in. I worked from home all the time, but I would try to make time for social engagements. I would always see like my girlfriend at the time on the weekends. And eventually, as I built up finances and built up my career, I started going to a co-working space every single day. And I did that on purpose in order to try to train myself to get out of the house, to be sociable, to be around other people. I would be in a co-working space from like basically 7 in the morning till almost 8 p.m. at night, almost like every time. That I'm talking 13 hours of being out in public, Monday through Friday, and then public social time on Saturday, Sunday as well. Like, barely ever alone except at night, when I wasn't with my girlfriend, or like in the early mornings. And still, after all that time, I still would have social anxiety. I would have social anxiety going to work. I would have social anxiety in the co-working space. I would be doing things to make sure I wasn't like closing myself up. Like, I would be talking to hostesses or like making small talk with people I met there. And still I would have social anxiety. Still, I would dread making phone calls. Still, I would have a hard time meeting new people. Still, I would be anxious on the way to, my co-working spot. Even if it became a comfortable experience, I would still be anxious. And as the pandemic started and life changed for me, I never really went back to a co-working spot. I tried to be social again after vaccines came out and stuff like that. I started seeing friends regularly again, and just it kind of all fell apart. I was under really intense stress in 2023, and I started canceling social plans more and more. ironically, while I was in exposure therapy for social anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder, mostly obsessive compulsive disorder, but still also applying to social anxiety. And it didn't fully work. It didn't fully work. I lost my job in February. I quit, quote unquote, but I was kind of like the work conditions made it clear that I had to leave. And after that, my social time just completely evaporated. I can count on one hand how many social like encounters and hangouts I've had since I left my job in February. And while I did have fun at a lot of the social experiences I've had since February, it just became obvious to me that it was becoming too stressful to like do, social anxiety exposure stuff while I'm struggling for work and to find a job. And so I stopped. So I guess that brings me to why I couldn't go to Anime NYC, which is just I went out to go run an errand on Thursday and I had an enormously awful anxiety attack. I think spurned by what I later realized as well was an ongoing issue of acid reflux that I'm dealing with. And I just realized, I am not in a mental state where I can handle a major convention. I can barely hang out with friends one on one. I just am dealing with a lot right now. And so I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. I mentioned this idea that social anxiety is something that goes away, the more that you hang out, right? If you hang out, if you do social things, if you take a social job, it will all go away, right? And I think that's true for some people. I really do. And it's advice that I would easily give to anybody. And I can say for a fact that spending more time outdoors doing social stuff does help my social anxiety. Like, I think if I was doing social hangouts for the past like 6 months, I absolutely would have been able to go to Anime NYC. Like, no doubt in my mind, in the slightest, that I would have been able to handle the convention. But I think some people can recover from social anxiety easily, and other people, social anxiety is a disability and it has to be managed in their life. And it is something that is always going to be chronically there. And that was the conclusion that I came to as someone that does struggle with social anxiety. What I mean by that is, essentially, I've found over the years that I have a lot of pre-existing factors that make me very vulnerable to social anxiety. Stuff from my childhood, some experiences I had have just permanently left the foundation of who I am as a person, which is socially anxious. It's just been formative experiences for me from a young age. It's also being a trans woman, being autistic, being someone who is also, neurodivergent in other ways, like having ADHD, someone who has dealt with a lot of negative social experiences, like facing online stalking in the past, or just simply, horizontal violence, like within the trans community. Like, feeling that online has also significantly changed my relationship with others and socializing. I think having negative experiences in the queer community as well. And also, I think it just could be as simple as brain chemistry, who I am as a person, right? I did years of therapy, but you know what really actually fixed my brain pretty quickly? Antidepressants. Like, I was shocked how much less anxiety I would face in social settings by just taking Lexapro. It did more for me in like a month than exposure therapy did in years. Which is funny because I do still deal with anxiety and can't handle a lot of outdoor stuff, but if I have to take like a video call with a doctor, it's a lot easier now than it used to be. Or if I have to stream, if I need to stream, I don't get as sweaty in my armpits like I used to be. I don't turn into like a pool of sweat like I used to. And it's just generally easier to maybe go out and go get like a cup of coffee in the morning if I want to go out that day to get a cup of coffee than it ever was in the past. I definitely feel my anxiety creeping up because I'm under a lot of stress and like there's diminishing returns with my antidepressants, but it still helps a lot more than I think the actual cognitive behavioral therapy stuff ever did. So, yeah, I guess I want to talk about this because there's this image that people have when it comes to DOMs on the internet, which is that they never deal with mental health issues, but that's not true. A lot of us have our own challenges in our own way, and it's okay. You can be someone who is a femdom, who is a mommy dom, a daddy dom, a cruel non-con dom, or maybe just a sweet dom, and also like struggle with these same things like social anxiety, like depression, things like that. But also in general, I think it's important for our fans to understand that like, we are people too, and we have our own struggles, and like we're not necessarily um a perfect fantasy. We role play things for you that are fun for us and are fun for you. But it's important to remember that there is someone behind the screen that has their own life struggles, and they might be similar to yours in some ways. In fact, the reason why you might enjoy the content in the first place is because we know what it's like to be in your shoes and want someone to come in and take care of you or show you that you can handle a tough thing or push your limits. So yeah, it's there's always a person behind the screen when a performer takes on the dom role. But yeah, I guess I also just wanted to finally open up about this as an experience that I have. So I really took stock of this moment because I feel really embarrassed that I have this press pass and it's just gonna sit there and not be taken. And I want to walk away from it saying I am going to be able to do conventions next year. But I've found in the past that when I push myself too hard, I tend to actually burn out and hurt myself. So, what I will say is, I would really like to do conventions next year, especially because freelance income is starting to come in, and I think I might be able to do them. But I don't know if I can do conventions next year either. I would like to be able to reach a state where I can handle it, where I can meet my fans or just simply do like in person reporting again. But I don't know if I will because I think in some ways I am a little hardwired to be an indoors cat too. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as it's managed, as long as I do get some social time. But it is who I am as a person. And if you don't see me at as many conventions or public things, or if I don't really seem to do as much social stuff as other VTubers, that's why. Because I do have this disability and I've built my life to handle it and to try to build a sustainable life while having it. And I think it's okay to have that problem, even if it hurts sometimes like today.
押し入れより愛を込めて